That was the greatest shot I've ever seen.
The worst was aiming at the horse.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Huge thank you to the subscribers and for people commenting, people sending me messages in other ways. It's all about the conversation, and thanks for all the support. So, in June, every year now, because it's the second year, so we can say every year, because it's clearly going to continue every year, which is great. There's an event that's been created by Michael K. Vaughan called June on the Range, and I had it in mind to take part, and he's particularly said this year that he wants people to read Louis L'Amour and Zane Grey. I think it's Zane Grey. So I had it in my mind to kind of keep my radar up for that sort of stuff, but I hadn't. Well, there's a shop down the road, to be fair, that I still might go in and get some stuff by. There's a whole rack of Western stuff that might include some of that stuff. But I visited the library, so I thought it might be nice to do a video about my library trip when I talk about June on the Range and a couple of other things, and just talk about how cool the libraries are and how cool my big library is in Portsmouth. In Portsmouth there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 libraries, I think, maybe 6. But the central library, the one in town, the one by the High Street, by the Guildhall, is massive, and you're guaranteed to find something you want to read there. So if you don't go to the library much, I'd recommend you sort of check out your local library, and if you're lucky, like you are in Portsmouth, where there's a bunch of them, then they're all different, and obviously the big one in the main centre is awesome. So I went there, and I deliberately went to the Western section thinking maybe there's some Louis L'Amour or Zane Grey, and there was, but I did get a Louis L'Amour book. So I have got from the library Last Stand at Papago Wells to read. So Mike, if you're watching this, tell me what you think of this one. He did say that a lot of Louis L'Amour's books are quite short. This is quite short, so it should be definitely one I will read. Last year I read Shane and Sisters Brothers, and I liked both of those books. I really enjoyed the event. So this is one I'm going to read, and I also got this. So this was in the library. So this is one I've actually put on my wish list on Amazon, but this was a really nice find. So the Complete Western Stories is a bigger book, but they're short. Well, I think they're short stories, or at least they're smaller. They may be just all novels, short novels. But anyway, I'm going to read some of this. So that's really cool. Elmore Leonard. So obviously Elmore Leonard's most famous for his crime stuff, and I've been reading a lot more crime stuff recently. And I've got really into a bunch of books that I was going to talk to you about in a minute. So, Elmore Leonard. I actually recently just bought 2 Elmore Leonard books, crime books. Out of Sight, I think, was one of them. And I think I bought Get Shorty. So anyway, I'm reading more crime at the minute than I have been in the past. And it's quite nice that, you know, crossing 2 worlds there with Elmore Leonard's Western stories. Very floppy book, this one. And it's Horror Mayhem at the moment, and I thought I'll nip into the horror section as well, see what they've got. And I'm finally reading some Graham Masterton. I got this one out, and I've started reading it on the bus home, because I thought, well, I've got my glasses, I've got a bunch of books in my bag. The bus home would have taken about 25 minutes, something like that. So I thought, well, I'll start reading. And I was really enjoying this straight away. This really pulled me in. So I've only read about 15 pages or something, 15-20 pages, and I'm definitely going to read this now. This is going to be the next thing I'm reading for Horror Mayhem. So I'm going to be doing a Horror Mayhem video in the next couple of days. But Graham Masterton, Red Hotel, really intriguing, really cool. So I've known about Graham Masterton since the 80s, when he was mentioned in the Twilight Zone magazine, or the early 90s. It might be the early 90s, but anyway, still never read anything by him, so that was quite cool that I found this and I thought I'd go for it. Hotels and horror books, always great settings. And yeah, so I'm really intrigued. If you've read this, tell me what you think of this. And just as the last bit of the video, I wanted to talk to you about the hard case file. So I've just finished this. I'll be talking about this in the monthly wrap-up. I don't really feel like I can. I probably will talk about it in the Horror Mayhem thing, because I read it partly because I thought it would fit Horror Mayhem, but it didn't massively fit Horror Mayhem, really, because it wasn't quite as gross and grim as I was expecting it to be. But it's a really interesting book. I really enjoyed it. And this series here, the hard case crime books, I think are really interesting. There's lots of books by famous authors that wrote under a pseudonym, There's also obviously some classic authors that write classic crime stuff, and there's just some really odd, idiosyncratic books in the series, and the covers are always very intriguing as well. So anyway, I was going to do a video on the Hard Case Crime series, and I picked 2 other books from the library. So I picked up Pimp by these guys who wrote Bust, which I've already read in the same series. So it's Pimp, and then there's also Cinnamon by Lawrence Block. So Lawrence Block's done loads of this series, and I just think they're really intriguing things. I mean, and to be fair, I discovered this series thanks to reading Stephen King. So 3 of Stephen King's books are in this series. So that's kind of where I leapt in. But I've read some really interesting books in this series. So I'm going to do a video on this at some point. I'll probably read these 2 first. So there we go. Libraries are awesome. That's what I was going to read for June on the Range. That's also coming up. And I'm reading the Grey Marston book. Let me know what you think of those books. Thanks for watching. Bye.